I would like to get that. I obviously I could have done 4 nights off in a row, but I feel like when I go 4 nights off in a row, there's always that chance that I get a little carried away sometimes when I have too much nights off, and I really upset the sleep schedule. Like I really change it around. So I kind of made that decision. You know what? I want to leave it at 3. And the benefit too is that it means like I don't have to work 3 nights in a row either. I'll have the one night on Sunday, and I'll have a night off, and then I work Tuesday, Wednesday, so I only work 2 nights in a row at max. And I feel it's much simpler for me. I won't get as exhausted because even this week, by this last night here on Wednesday, I was starting to feel quite low on energy and struggling a little bit. And for me, it's just a matter of trying to keep a good mood, keep good spirits. I just don't want to get back to how I was feeling earlier in the year. You know, I really don't want to get back to that place because it was kind of, I don't know if I want to say scary, but when you feel like there's no reason living, when you just feel so hopeless, and yeah, it just does not feel well. Having that like a lack of motivation for just living is not fun. Let's see what we got out of the cave, the mini game. Thank God. I did my best to edit out parts where I paused for any reason, whether it be I had to go wipe my hands because they're sweaty or any little things like that, really. So I think that's kind of the gist of what's going on in life. I can talk about what I will likely be playing next. I kind of am feeling like a little bit of a break from Spyro, probably because I tend to just drag these things on longer than they need to go on, with how long it takes me sometimes to record the game and edit it and then, do all that. Because I try not to get too far ahead of myself in terms of recording, right? And especially, I think I talked about it maybe in one of these sessions. I don't entirely remember. The whole that because it could take me so long, I may start to lose interest in the game because it's taken me that long. So I think that was part of the frustration, was I was just feeling tired of Spyro, A Hero's Tale. sorry for the quiet. It's funny because, like, you know, at work I put a lot of thought into like stuff I would talk about, and I've thought about this a lot, but sometimes when you just actually get to doing it, your brain's kind of like, yeah, I don't know, suddenly. I believe I was talking about what I want to play next. Which, so yeah, like I said, I kind of want to take a small break from Spyro, and I've actually been kind of craving a certain game that I've wanted to play for some time because it includes a certain actor that I'm a big fan of, that I love, and that's Pierce Brosnan. I know I've talked about it before. I've definitely had to talk about him before. If I haven't, I'd be shocked on YouTube. So if you don't know, he did 4 Bond movies. I always felt like he got, I like to say he's like the unluckiest person to play Bond, because, I mean, like, the fact that he even got to play Bond is already, like, super great. And I guess, like, you could say lucky in that regard. But he's unlucky in that he always, in that he basically lost the role in '87 because his contract with Remington Steele got like renewed on the last day, I think, like the last possible day, and then he does get to play the role, which is still like miraculous. Like, that's pretty awesome that he would get to play it 6 years later. No, like 8 years later. But then he's kind of forced out of the role because they want to reboot Bond. Because it was just kind of a changing, like, for that genre, for what James Bond was. It was just kind of a time of changing. And because Brosnan was approaching 50 and all that stuff, he's kind of forced out of the role, and it's just unfortunate because, like, every other Bond basically got to leave on their own terms. I think even like Roger Moore, I know he's technically forced out, but that was because he was way too old and he no longer looked young enough for the role, you know? He was definitely too old, and I think he understood that too. Like, he understood, I can't do another one, I'm too old for this. Age is always a touchy subject because, like, to me, it's not so much of how old they are, but how well do they look, you know? Can I buy that this guy who's in their mid-50s, could I buy that they're perhaps more in their early 40s, late 30s, and do they look suave enough still?
There you are, my favorite one.
That's kind of more my question. It's like, does he still look like he could? Does it still look believable that women would fall for this guy and all this jazz? Yeah, so he's like, he could have done like 6, 7, 8. He could have done a lot more movies, basically my point. He could have, I'm going to say he could have doubled what he did. And you know, like, there are people like me who believe he was legitimately born to play the role. Sorry, I just noticed something in the game. Not in Spyro here, but something else. But just because of how things turned out. So, he only does 4 movies. There was a lot of talks. There was talk, and, you know, things were actually for a while looking good that he was going to get a 5th movie. I believe he had talked about it, and things for the most part were looking like up. And the thing to remember too is that during Brosnan's movies, is that they were still doing well at the theater. They were still like, even though they're like now considered some of the like the worst Bond films or just rather mediocre, they were still doing very well at the theater. And I just think it's that people liked seeing Brosnan as Bond, and that the movies, while perhaps cheesy or more over the top for Bond movie standards, were still enjoyable. Part of me just thinks that it was a different time in 2000, in the late 90s, early 2000s, that maybe we look back and question how did those movies gross as much as they did, but I just think that it was just a different time. That the way those movies were wasn't as ridiculous. I think when you look at the cheesy 80s action movies from then and the even the 90s, it was just more, you didn't have as much of that gritty action style yet. So anyway, the thing I was gonna say is, while he never got that fifth movie that I think I and a lot of fans think he deserved, he did do a video game that uses, 2004, I believe it was the year it was released. They did their best. Obviously, it's late sixth gen. They did their best with matching his appearance as best as they could, and and sorry, and they use his voice. They actually, I think it's the only game he actually did voice work for. But so while a few other games had used his likeliness before, none of them actually had his voice. Other people, if it was Brosnan's Bond, they had other people come in, but this one actually has Brosnan doing the voice, and I'm kind of like, you know what, I really want to see what this game's like. It would be cool because it's kind of, even though his last movie was in 2002 as Bond, this game is kind of like that last hurrah for him as Bond, right? Sorry. Just needed to drink something, help the throat a little bit. It was, I would say the game is kind of his last hurrah as Bond, even though you don't see him acting in the movie and that kind of stuff. It's, in many ways, his farewell to the part. So, that's kind of what I want to play next. It's going to be different because it's a third-person shooter, which I don't think I've done third-person shooter yet on the channel. Also, I've done Serious Sam, and I've done that. I've actually been thinking because I'm sure some of you know, like, I had the problems with when I was doing Serious Sam, the Xbox port, where I was using an upscaler for a bit, and then that was syncing the audio, so I had to do my best to sync the audio back up with the game, but that only went so well. And now that I have like the HDMI cord that I didn't have before for the original Xbox, I'm kind of in that mind, like, I do kind of want to redo Serious Sam on the Xbox. So you know, that will probably happen at some point. I haven't really been in much of like a shooter mood in terms of playing shooting games for like recording. I think I think it's just because I already play so much shooting outside of recording, like Destiny and Overwatch. I've even been playing some Black Ops 3 again. So there's all that bit right there. Obviously, there was also the Series Sam Next encounter, which I never finished because reasons. That's also something that's on the to-do list. Kind of all in due time. I need to get myself in a more comfortable position. We still got an hour to go. Possibly more because reasons. So I believe the game is James Bond, Everything for Nothing, and that is what I am looking at, probably for playing next on the channel. I think once we beat that, I don't think there will be much of a delay. Probably get back into Spyro after that. I have been, I've bought a few more original Xbox games, older games again. Slowly building that collection up. So I guess we can talk about how I enjoyed Spyro now, A Hero's Tale. It's definitely better. I don't think there is any shock to say that it's a better game than Enter the Dragonfly. Like without a doubt, it's a better game. The game fundamentally is just better because it's actually solid, it's actually stable, and it's not threatening to crash. Even though I said like when I played, like it's the fact that the frame rate's actually stable and I'm not worrying about falling through the fucking floor. That's helpful, and I don't feel like the game's about to break on me. I think one thing I really remember talking about was the music. It's not a fantastic soundtrack by any means, but it's actually rather enjoyable, I find. Like there are some beats that I totally can like bop my head to a little bit, you know? I think I'm gonna sneeze.